I'll move straight to another question related to Bitcoin also, which is the concept of blockchain, right? Most times we hear about Bitcoin and then blockchain. So what is blockchain and how does it relate to Bitcoin?
Blockchain itself is another very, very exciting concept that should be seen alongside cryptocurrency. What a blockchain is essentially is a distributed ledger, where in a more traditional setting, a ledger is a journal of transactions. It outlines ins and outs and values. Now, when you consider a blockchain, that ledger is shared across a number of users, or in crypto asset terms, they're called nodes. Now, each of those nodes will validate a transaction as it happens. So essentially, it's a digital shared ledger across a network. That's what a blockchain is. Now, depending on the structure of the blockchain, you might have an open blockchain or an open distributed ledger where anyone can validate transactions. In Bitcoin terms, they're called miners, which is actually mining is actually the process of validating transactions. You might also have a distributed ledger, a blockchain that's managed by a closed number of nodes, a closed number of controlling parties, which is something that's envisioned for Ripple, for example. So it's very much just a case of transactions are validated by more than one central body or more than one user, and this is done simultaneously before a transaction is approved. And that's really the concept of blockchain as I understand it.
All right, great. Okay, just recently I came across an article which essentially was discussing this craze among millennials, especially in Africa, who can't seem to get enough of Bitcoin, right? The article plainly states that African millennials can't get enough of Bitcoin. So it stirs up the curiosity of any reader to know, apart from what the article said, if there are other views out there as to why African youths or why Bitcoin is gaining so much popularity among African youths. What are your views on that?
I would say, and I'd love to get Richard's take on this as well, but I would say it's really no surprise. African youths are not so different to young people the world over, I would say. Technology adoption and understanding is a lot easier for a young person to grasp. And especially in Africa, I know that South Africa is up there in these numbers. Unemployment among youth is rife. And naturally, youths as a consequence would look to something like cryptocurrency as an alternative form of earning income, if not just a more exciting way to deal with finances generally. I may be missing a few things. I certainly don't know everything there is to know about this topic, but I would say that generally speaking, it just makes sense. Young people will have been burned by currency instability. Young people would have been isolated from the banking sector. It's much easier when you consider cryptocurrency to think about it as a young person in the context of business, understanding how you can transact outside of your country without worrying about these stiff traditional bank remittance policies and rules that are generally in place. So adopting a riskier form of investment or money transaction than the traditional banking sector just makes perfect sense.
Great. Just hold on a bit, because I would like to bring in Richard at this point. That's a question that I was love for Richard to also chime in and share his own views. Now, Richard, picking up from what Thomas just said, do you see links between high unemployment and the drive and interest in Bitcoin among African youths?
Yeah, of course, that is, you know, a kind of topic that I was looking for, because sometime, I think last month, I was having a discussion with some people I would call crypto naysayers, okay? So they were like saying that the cryptocurrency stuff is just championed by African youths, okay? And to them, is because African youths don't know anything better about investments, okay? So I was trying to, I was tell them that, the reason for this is because cryptocurrency has created a boundless limit for African youths, okay? So for example, here in Nigeria, you can't send or receive more than $100 in a month, okay? So here is a country where most of the African youths who are doing legitimate jobs work freelancing, for companies outside, okay? And they need to receive their payments, okay? So looking at the different policies put in place by the most of the governments in African countries, you can see that the average African youth can be able to thrive, okay? So cryptocurrency now coming to bridge that gap, has given much excitement to the African youth who is, eager to embrace it with full force, okay? And African youths also have been able to, build business around this technology. Okay, so it's not just something of investment for them. Okay, so for people who have, for other people who have money to hedge, okay, they can be seeing crypto as an opportunity to hedge their money against inflation and and this currency issue. Okay, but the African youth are seeing cryptocurrency as as an opportunity to create wealth, to bring, to build a network across their country and across their continent.
All right, great. You were just mentioning that African youths are building technologies around, building businesses around this technology, and that's actually is like preempting the next question, which I already have in mind to ask you. Do you have examples you can cite as to, let's say, innovative enterprises that have been built by young Africans around cryptocurrency and Bitcoin? Just the way before now we had things like M-Pesa from East Africa, which was like a fintech innovation. So do we have innovations like that, businesses, companies that are springing up as built by young entrepreneurs around cryptocurrency and Bitcoin? Just some few examples.
All right. Okay. We have actually not one, not two. Many of them. So a perfect example is Abit Network. Okay. So the Abit Network is building or have already built a system whereby petty traders and merchants, can receive payments with crypto, with just a point of sale machine. Okay, so with a point of sale machine, you can be able to use your credit card, and make a purchase, and the debit will go directly from your crypto balance, not your Naira, your Naira bank, account. Okay, so there are other companies like Patricia. Okay, in Patricia, you can be able to send or receive money outside of Nigeria without going through Western Union or what is this called, PayPal, and all the rest of them. What you just need is to purchase a coin from the Patricia app. Okay, so Patricia will now process the coin outside of your country to the receiver's end. Okay, so we have also other, other apps that are built by Nigerians, whereby if you have, let's say gift card, okay, you can redeem your gift card directly from whatever value it is and get it to crypto. Okay, so you can now be able to withdraw this crypto straight to your bank account. So we have other of them. So I just want to mention this few.
Hey, Richard.
Yeah.
All right, great. Now, while you're citing all this, one thing that keeps coming to mind is the fact that much of this Bitcoin wallets that people go about using for these transactions are actually to be found on mobile phones. Okay, and just within the last decade, we've seen how our mobile phones have become so, the smartphones especially, have become so ubiquitous across Africa, especially as used by the younger generation of Africans. How much of this spread of mobile phones can you attribute as having enabled the rise in Bitcoin popularity in Africa?
I didn't get you correctly. Say how much of?
All right, I was saying we've seen a rise in popularity in the use of mobile phones, smartphones, okay, especially among African youths over the past decade. And much of these Bitcoin transactions also occur in mobile phones. So if we were to do a bit of a correlation analysis, how much of the spread of mobile phones can you attribute to the rise in popularity in Bitcoin among African youths? Can we really say it is mostly driven by that spread of mobile phones?
Oh, okay. I would rather say that the spread in crypto, is actually driven by the spread in mobile phones. Okay, because you can see that you will either need to have a mobile phone or a laptop before you can access anything that has to do with this thing, with crypto. Okay, so mobile phone, being an enabler of technology in Africa or even around the world, is just helping to make crypto more popular. Okay, it's just helping to make this thing, the crypto network, more popular.
If I could jump in, I'd like to add to that, to say I think that tracks back to definitely one of the reasons why cryptocurrency is so popular among African youths. There's no need for you, although you do have really good vendors and very creative business people who create these solutions and are very successful in them, like having a crypto card, as you mentioned, Richard. I would also say that cryptocurrency not needing the traditional card, the traditional EFT system, just as long as you have a smartphone, you can transact in cryptocurrency. It doesn't matter where you are when you're doing it, who you're sending that money to. It's a very big draw. So I definitely agree with you there.
All right. Thanks, Thomas. And I was coming to you with a question still related to what we've been saying. Let's say 2-3 decades down the past, there was this technological leapfrogging that occurred in several parts of Africa with regards to communications. And that was the era when many African countries leapfrogged the use of landline phones and went straight into the use of mobile phones. So we essentially bypassed an era in the industrial history of other countries and joined with much of the rest of the world in the use of mobile phones, as also a case of trying to bridge the digital divide. So people, experts always cite that instance of how Africa was able to leapfrog several eras, and through the mobile phone, they bypassed other stages and joined in the mobile revolution and bridged a bit of the digital divide. Today, again, and just like what Richard has been saying, much of the use of Bitcoin dependent on this use of mobile phones again. And some experts are being led to believe that through the surge in popularity in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, Africa can once again leapfrog the digital divide, right? Because of this surge in popularity of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, which definitely requires either a mobile phone or a laptop to do it. So by using or by engaging in more Bitcoin transactions, definitely that means more use of mobile phones, more use of laptops, and more use of fintech. So the experts are led to believe that this could lead to another bridging of the digital divide. But let me ask you, Thomas, do you agree with that analysis? And if yes, what forms of support in the form of innovation do you think are needed for this leapfrogging to occur?
Thanks, Chogo. I think it's definitely realistic to accept that cryptocurrency could lead to another leapfrogging as far as Africa is concerned. But at the same time, what that would mean seeing is large-scale implementation, not just among individuals, but also business and companies within Africa. We can't wait for the rest of the world to say that Africa is an ideal place to invest. We all know this, but at the same time, large business is very slow to the take. Cryptocurrency is something that can enable African business to DIY, include themselves in digital commerce, include Africa at large to include itself as an innovator over and above the rest. We already see countries like Senegal and Tunisia who are accepting digital currencies, albeit not in the Bitcoin style, more of your traditional virtual digital representation of money. You've also got the South African government that's considering the implementation of a centrally backed digital currency. Africa is, because of its unique position in the world, I would think very, very keen to look at new ways to innovate. And I think that's very much a credit to the continent at large. But what is needed is trust by government. A lot of governments, including my own, and as far as I know, to Nigeria, Richard, if I'm not mistaken, is a little bit more amenable to cryptocurrency and open to it. But many governments view it with circumspection simply because it's not vastly understood or widely understood. It's that understanding that can really hold that innovation back and that large-scale acceptance and adoption. That's as far as I can see into that matter.
All right, Thomas. Still within this train of thought, there is this rising phrase, like a phrase or a concept called banking the unbanked. Banking the unbanked, and it is mostly linked to one of the benefits of Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. We are told that cryptocurrency provides opportunities for banking the unbanked. And that concept is not very clear. And I would appreciate if you can just throw more light on what it means to bank the unbanked and how Bitcoin is providing such opportunities in Africa, please.
Absolutely. Well, this draws back to one or two points that we'd made previously here, which is cryptocurrency is far, far more accessible than a lot of banking is to a lot of individuals. All you need is your mobile phone and a small bit of liquidity, and you might find that your wealth booms. So inclusion in commerce is definitely something that cryptocurrency has already enabled far and wide. You would be surprised. It's not necessarily just a street sweeper who's in cryptocurrency. It's also the banker. It's very equal in that sense. In my career so far, what I've seen, consulting with many individuals who've been involved in cryptocurrency, is that they found that they've been enriched by it simply by transacting in it through nothing more than a mobile phone, nothing more than a laptop. Now, to add to that, cryptocurrency, yes, largely because of its unregulated nature to date, is not always subject to the same know your customer and other regulatory requirements that banks and other financial institutions are forced to put their customers through. Cryptocurrency is not held back in that regard. Literally anybody and everyone can transact in cryptocurrency, can hold a certain amount of cryptocurrency. And as we've seen with something like Bitcoin or an Ethereum, or more recently Dogecoin, as mentioned before, its value as it's adopted increases massively, so that 10 shilling amount of Bitcoin that you may have bought not long ago is worth 300 times more. And that's something that's made it an amazing hedge for a lot of people as well, which simply just means that it's used as a good counterbalance to traditional monetary currencies that are subject to their own hyperinflation problems, that are subject to their own exchange control limitations. You've got people accepting payments across borders like never before, simply because they can, and it's near instantaneous. That's really a lot of the reason why it would be coined as, pardon the pun, but coined as banking the unbanked, because those people who are traditionally excluded from commerce from a banking perspective, those barriers simply just do not exist with cryptocurrency.
Right. Interesting. Richard, if I may bring you in to just add to what Thomas had just finished saying. How may this idea of banking the unbanked reduce poverty or help develop rural communities in Africa, especially in ways that may not have been achievable by the traditional banking infrastructure?
Okay, so just like Thomas was saying, okay, Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general created a kind of boundless possibility. You know, what traditional banks were not able to do, or even were able to do but couldn't do. For example, the DeFi, the decentralized finance in the crypto space is a good, innovation that the African youth in particular are using to grow their environment. Okay, so before now, you can't just walk into the bank to deposit your money, and you expect a kind of high return. Okay, but with DeFi, okay, you can actually stake your coin or provide liquidity, and in short period of time, you will see the coin gaining, extra value. Okay, so these are things that the traditional banks, things that weren't possible to do with the traditional banks. Okay, but with the advent of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general, these things became possible, and day by day, new people are creating more possibilities with the blockchain technology. Okay, because the blockchain is is open sourced. Okay, so anybody can queue in and create whatever he feels like that we give much value to his community. So another aspect is the aspect of ICO. Okay, so in the past, if you build or if you start a company, to raise seed capital and all that used to be a problem. Okay, but with ICO, that's initial coin offering. Okay, new and young African entrepreneurs can easily raise funds for their new companies.
Okay, great. So far, we've been seeing so many positives and talking about so many positives about Bitcoin, and but just lest we get too carried away by the prospects, it's good we also take note of the fact that there are so many cautionary tales out there concerning cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and the others, especially Bitcoin. One may want to know why these cautionary tales are out there, and why we see several governments and the central banks of several African countries. I know Nigeria, where I am, for example. We also hear about the central banks of Kenya and Uganda constantly issuing warnings to their citizens about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in Africa. Why do we have such? I don't know which of you want to go at that. Thomas?
All right. Okay.
I'm happy to hear from Richard on this first.
Okay,
I'm quite curious.
Okay. Especially here in Nigeria, cryptocurrency introduction, and expansion actually started during the time Ponzi scheme was much in vogue in this area of Africa. Okay, the likes of MMM. All right. So where you can actually use Bitcoin to to provide help and get help and all that. Okay. So when the MMM scheme failed, so people who have actually come in contact with Bitcoin via the MMM platform now saw Bitcoin as something that has to do with scam. Okay, so and another one, since crypto is kind of decentralized, okay, so governments are actually afraid that it can be used to sponsor terrorist activities, especially here where we have much terrorist cases. Okay, so governments are trying to regulate the possibility of to know how much is coming into their space and how much is going out and where it's coming to and where it's going to. But if you are sending money via Bitcoin or any other thing, you can see that it will be actually impossible for the government to trace where the money is coming to and where is going to. A perfect example is during the NSAS case. Okay, so the protesters were actually, they used a fintech called Flutterwave to send money. Okay, so government now issued an order to the company to tell them to stop that. Okay, so when that was stopped, the protesters now provided a cryptocurrency address. So anywhere, anybody from around the world was able to send in their own portion. Okay, and the government weren't able to track down those who sent what and to whose account to whose account it was sent to. Okay, so government needs this this transparency. Okay, which Bitcoin and the likes can't really provide them with. Okay, let me see if I can hear from Thomas.
So Thomas, you want to say something before I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen it working in tax. I've seen it very closely from not just South Africa, but other countries as well. It could be any number of reasons. And just keep in mind that cryptocurrency, even though Bitcoin itself in the public eye has been around the better half of 11 years, around 11 years, it's still very, very new and very misunderstood. Cryptocurrency, firstly, as mentioned earlier, it's not subject to the same know your customer requirements and the same level of regulation. And similar to MMM, we also had we've had our own fair share of just
so there was MMM in South Africa too?
MTI holdings, hundreds of millions of investors' money just disappeared overnight. It's very difficult to differentiate if you're not already very knowledgeable. What's a Ponzi scheme? What's a scam? And what's genuine? And that level of trust is difficult to instill unless you fully understand it, which governments, by and large, don't just yet. The certain cryptocurrencies, as Richard rightly said, are used for illegitimate purposes. Long ago, maybe not so long ago, depending on who the listener is, we had the scandal of Silk Road, which was a black market where payments were accepted in cryptocurrency. Some cryptocurrencies, believe it or not, do not use a blockchain, like Monero, for example, and that's still very popular in illegitimate circles for remittance of payments or transfer of value. So you keep in mind the fact that cryptocurrency is highly volatile. It's difficult, even though a blockchain makes transactions trackable, it's not worth much unless you know whose wallet ID is whose. And firstly, and secondly, the type of blockchain is one that facilitates that level of transparency, which is antithetical to what cryptocurrency investors in principle want in many quarters. Also, the ease with which cryptocurrency can be transferred across borders without, and perhaps this is another angle to why it's become so popular among African youths, it's not subject to the same incredibly high transaction fees. SWIFT fees are absolutely massive and very onerous, and they really erode the value that's received and transmitted. Cryptocurrency is a fraction of that, if even that much. So yeah, it's something that governments do not control. There is no central issuing authority for cryptocurrency. It's anyone, anywhere, anytime who has the resources can play a role in controlling that ecosystem. So it's not hard to see why governments do view it with circumspection.
Okay. Thomas, sorry to just cut you short on that. There's something you said, and maybe I didn't get you correctly. But then, are you advocating that government should exercise regulation over cryptocurrency? Is it a case where the government's legal instrument needs to catch up with the technology? Because some are scared that this may eventually discourage investors from going into the sector. The more you have government intervention, don't you think that may cripple the prospects of Bitcoin in Africa, the more we have government intervention in the area?
I am absolutely not, I am advocating for regulation, but not over-regulation. You need to, there's a sweet spot that needs to be struck. Now, let me make my view clear here. There's a sweet spot that needs to be struck to the extent that you protect those who are transacting and investing in cryptocurrency versus over-regulation, which strangles the entire environment cryptocurrency-wise. For example, tax. Tax is giving back to the country that gives to you. Tax is rarely seen as fair. but it's a necessary thing in order for a functioning government to operate or to continue functioning. Governments, if they can't, we've seen this happen around the world. Government can't find how it's going to tax it or protect its people from it. They're going to ban it. You need to have, albeit it will always be a tentative thing, you need that relationship to be in place between a government and something that's being used widely within its borders and across or through its borders. Remember, cryptocurrency makes borders very permeable from a financial perspective. So if you have a government see that it cannot control that, what's to stop inadvertent capital flight? We know that one of the problems with cryptocurrency on open markets is that it is subject to some level of manipulation depending on the cryptocurrency and the market. You have an incredibly wealthy investor who goes into one of these open markets, and they all exist in their own silos. And they make a massive acquisition of Bitcoin on that marketplace. Demand is driven up, so the price increases. And then once they've seen an adequate increase in their holding, they then dump it. It's called a pump and dump. How do you protect your people from that? Well, there is that. This is one of those reasons why it is important for government to at least understand what's happening in cryptocurrency and regulate in such a way that it facilitates that investment and encourages large-scale adoption. There's no reason why cryptocurrency can't be used in a logistics chain where, for example, Cardano or Ethereum that makes use of smart contracts. Why can't that be used along untrusted parties in a logistic chain when you're talking about something like trading stock? Well, in order for government to understand that, it would need to understand it to the extent that it can regulate. And if it's going to regulate, it does do one of two things. It either causes it to blossom or it causes it to fizzle out. Or you create an another black market where it's used outside of regulation simply because it is unfortunately a very, very dynamic thing. DeFi transactions, as Richard had mentioned earlier, decentralized finance, you can procure loans. You can also give loans in cryptocurrency. Now, in many countries, including many countries in Africa, there are certain protections and controls that come with regulation. From a creditor's perspective and from a debtor's perspective. And those are arguably quite important to encourage credit and economic stimulus. You remove those controls and those regulations and those protections that come with them, you've essentially got a Wild West situation on your hands, and that can be dangerous for all parties concerned, especially when you've got uneven parties. You've got a more empowered or wealthier party or a more a party with more resources available as compared to another party who may be a debtor and isn't as protected from unscrupulous behavior. Regulation comes in to protect that. And it's not necessarily a case of regulating cryptocurrency as its own unique thing. It's about understanding that it does fit into traditional understandings and finance and financial models, etc. But not only does it do that, it evolves them further and develops them into unforeseen territory. But there's no reason why that can't be brought within the ambit of existing regulation as long as it doesn't choke it.
Oh, okay, thanks for such in-depth and very exhaustive analysis on the matter. But I think I'm going to ask you one more question, Thomas, before I go back to Richard. And so far, we've been seeing efforts of governments to try and regulate cryptocurrency, either for the sake of trying to battle criminality or terrorism or what may be illegitimate. But then, how about we flip the coin on the government for a minute? How about we look at the fact that the government in Africa have also been part of the impediments to our development on the continent. And at some point, some analysis are coming out to show that it may even be blockchain that will be helpful in tackling some of the problems of corruption in governments. All right, so there's this concept of blockchain being incorruptible, and that with blockchain, you get a system that guarantees transparency and accountability. So how does this concept of blockchain incorruptibility present opportunities for we in Africa to transform the way governments are run in Africa? How can we use blockchain to make governments more accountable and more transparent, so as to solve some of the problems of corruption in leadership, which is part of the bane to African development?
Well, that's a really, really good question to hear as a tax expert. With a distributed ledger, transactions are recorded real time, and the immutability comes in where you compare one ledger to, or a single ledger to a distributed ledger, and one which is secured by cryptography. So let's say you have one ledger. That ledger can be photocopied, it can be scanned and sent to endless parties, sure, but it's stemmed from one entry made by one party. That can be changed. The detail on that ledger can be altered. Now, when you talk about cryptocurrency, and let's use the blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain model as an example, you've got miners who validate these transactions, and you've got millions of them. And it's only when a critical mass of those miners reach the end of that cryptographic puzzle that their computers must solve. Part of the reason why Bitcoin is seen as so energy intensive is it takes a lot of computing work and a computing effort to simply solve that cryptographic issue or problem and enclose it in a hash, or hash it and stamp it as a transaction on that blockchain. Now you have millions of computers that do that. One of them gets it wrong, that's fine. If all of them get it wrong, that's nigh impossible. You've got what we call an immutable entry. That entry cannot be altered. It's already long past. There are more entries happening in real time that can be tracked. Now, from a government transparency perspective, what we see in every government worldwide, I would argue, is the fact that there isn't that transparency. Where is tax revenue going? How is it being used? What are we not being told from a finance perspective? We need to hear our ministries of finance report back to us as a country to say where that tax revenue money went and where it'll be going to. How do we hold them accountable? Cryptocurrency presents an amazing opportunity for that to be accessible, for where those funds go to be accessible to the public at large. Joe, were you there? Hi.
Hello.
Joe? What's your take on it, Richard?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I quite agree with you. You know, especially in the aspect of election. Okay, so because in Africa in particular, almost you know, the leaders that are in the office presently, majority of them were not being elected by the people. You know, they got into the office through rigging. Okay, so using blockchain technology to conduct election, we give more credibility and transparency in the election process. And when we have that eligibility, eligibility and transparency, that will make more people come out to exercise their franchise. Because here in Nigeria, many people have sworn not to participate in election ever, because they have seen that over the years, the past election they participated in were being rigged off. Okay, so they have sworn that they are not going to participate in election, anymore. So if there is a way to, enkindle their trust in the system, okay, so they can now come out to participate again. And when we have majority of the people, voting for one particular person legitimately, so we can have a better government in Africa.
I agree with you fully. I think that's actually one of the areas where blockchain moves away from necessarily a financial model into simply a tool for transparency and efficiency, because you have a distributed ledger that tracks something like elections and who has voted, who hasn't voted, and where have those votes gone, which you can build into a blockchain infrastructure. You've suddenly got a record of something that cannot be altered after the fact. And so who the people end up voting for, everyone knows it, everyone can see it, and you can't change that record. It's there for the public to see. I agree with you fully. That's something that's quite exciting.
Yeah.
I think Ojochogwu will be trying to rejoin us at the moment. But flowing from that, I think what we should maybe touch on just for a moment is just the general point. Are cryptocurrencies the future, or the future of Africa? Where do you see us going with that? Because I think that's something that's definitely worth discussion.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so I think that just as you mentioned about taxation, so I think before the government come into tax, and regulate crypto, they first need to contribute. Okay, because just like you said, tax is giving back to a government that has given you. Okay, so in a country like Nigeria and some other African countries where governments haven't embraced the technology and haven't done anything for the technology, it won't be actually wise for them to come in to try to regulate the system or to task participants in the system. So I think before we can move forward, from where we are to where the world think Africa needs to be with crypto, the government needs to first get a better understanding of blockchain technology and the cryptocurrency. Okay, with getting that better understanding, they can now see a way to incorporate it into the government and also provide and make provisions for big and medium players in the system. Okay, so by then they can now come in to regulate and to task and all that. So to help save save investors from scams and protect the country from illegal activities sponsored by money coming in through crypto and all that. Okay.
No, I agree as well on that one. Implementation or adoption is something that needs to lead into innovation, is something that needs to lead into taking the lead. you see large-scale adoption, or you see acceptance as a first phase to cryptocurrency adoption in any given country, then you see the curiosity grow, which is where I think we are now with most African countries. Is they're looking at it more with curious eyes than suspicious eyes, or perhaps just starting to. And once governments are open to it, they can start using it to their advantage. It's not necessarily something that's used as money. Its use cases go far beyond that. And once we start seeing that not just taken on by players in our markets, but more by governments themselves as well, and perhaps even incentivizing blockchain adoption, we'll see Africa take the lead in very unexpected ways in the international market or in the international context.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
And I mean, when we talk about whether cryptocurrency would be something that facilitates the future of Africa, I think a term that makes many of us think of is cryptopia, a crypto utopia of sorts, where it presents the gateway to prosperous and functional future of African society at large. I mean, I would personally say that cryptocurrency presents absolutely massive opportunities from that perspective, as long as we have governments willing to work with it and work with each other. You just on a payments perspective, you see a payment from Nigeria to Ghana or Nigeria to South Africa happening in seconds with minimal fees going to a bank that is not a government. You've suddenly encouraged, directly, indirectly, you've encouraged that commercial interaction between these countries in Africa, because people aren't facing $200 coming off of a $1,000 transfer just because of the transfer. And if that's backed centrally or backed, shall I say, by government, or at least accepted by governments, and endorsed in some ways, shall we say, with sufficient regulation is when that would happen. You've got no impediment almost to transacting with somebody who you've never met before, 5 countries away.
Yeah. Okay, I think he's back.
Okay. Hi, Chogo.
Hello.
Hello.
We lost you there.
So sorry about that. My connection showed up unexpectedly.
No problem. We were just talking about crypto utopia and how that could really lead to a prosperous future for Africa.
Well, all right. But then how can you just summarize where I left you off about governments, the use of blockchain, incorruptible blockchain, to create transparency and accountability, and how that can make more opportunities for transparency in government, which is needed to curb corruption in leadership in Africa? Just a brief summary, please.
Sure. You've got a blockchain system which is controlled by many parties, and transactions are bedded down and stamped and recorded at the same time. In order to undo those transactions, you need an immense amount of computing power. You would need not just one supercomputer, you'd arguably need a few just to have any hope at undoing or changing one of those transactions. And that's if it can happen, depending on the distributed ledger, the blockchain involved. Now, and you look at it from a revenue perspective. How is government money being spent? That cannot, once a transaction happens, you can trace, as long as you know the wallets, and if government has those IDs, they can record that. Where did the money go from? Where did it go to? That cannot be undone. And a problem that many of us have is that lack of transparency and reporting back at certain times of the year, but perhaps not as honest as it should be. With blockchain technology, that no longer becomes an issue, and accountability is a lot more the norm, rather than having to trust your government, which a lot of people, quite frankly, for justified or unjustified reasons, do not do. And Richard also had an amazing point on it.
Okay.
Yeah. When you are out, we are, flowing along. So I pointed out that blockchain technology in general can be used to restore the confidence of the people in the government if it's incorporated in the electoral system. Okay, so because cryptocurrency most of the problem we are having is coming from the leaders, in the sense that the people elect, in the people during election, they try to elect someone they trust that can deliver the mandate. Okay, but you see someone else hijacking the position out of power or money and others. Okay, but with if blockchain technology can be used to conduct election, that will create a transparent system in the in the electoral system. Okay, and also it will make people be more confident and have faith in their electoral act again. Okay, because
so
here in Nigeria, hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, here in Nigeria, many people have sworn not to participate in election. Okay, because they believe that the ones they have done in the past were being rigged. Okay, so but if cryptocurrency and the blockchain technology come in to play a key role of transparency, and people are now able to see that someone they have voted for, someone the majority have voted for has actually won, and anybody can go into the to the hash and see who voted who and who actually won. Not just INEC of official coming on the net to just call by the list he have, which have already been manipulated. Okay, but with crypto, with the blockchain technology, which cannot be altered. Okay, so if the election is being conducted with the blockchain technology, you can see that the issue of rigging and all that will totally be out, and we can have the person we voted for in the seat. All right.
Okay, yeah, I can see your kid here trying to share some views about blockchain and crypto with us. Yeah, hello. Okay, so in other words, we're just saying that the incorruptibility of blockchain could be of great help in tackling the problems of untrusted voting systems in Africa. And through that, we could get into positions of power, leaders who come in to those positions by more transparent processes. Okay, now, in my absence, you guys are already talking about Cryptopia. So I think we should gradually build towards that. Okay, but before we get there, there's this silent question I need to pose to the both of you. We hear it these days making the rounds that cryptocurrency is the currency of the future. So I'm going to ask both of you, do you quite agree that cryptocurrency is the currency of the future? And then in particular, is cryptocurrency the currency for the future of Africa, or the currency for the future of Africa?
You know, if I could throw my 2 cents in, I would say that, you know, perhaps rather than the cryptocurrency in its current format being the currency of the future, what we're going to see is what it evolves into being the currency of the future. Governments far and wide are going to take a very long time and perhaps generations to build towards a universal, decentralized, non-government backed form of monetary value transfer or value transfer. But certainly what we see from a blockchain perspective is almost certainly going to be implemented more and more as it's better understood and as its use cases are extended. So as it evolves, we'll see it more and more used. I mean, we're already seeing governments using Bitcoin as an accepted form of legal tender already, not in Africa, but we are seeing it. We're also seeing, yeah, we're also exactly. We're also seeing governments in Africa creating their own digital currencies and dipping their toe in, so to speak. You know, understanding it, understanding how it's built, understanding what it's used for. Almost certainly, definitely, we're going to be seeing cryptocurrency or an evolution from it used in general commerce. That's at least, that's what I believe.
All right, I'm going to pose the same question to Richard, but just hold on, Richard. There's something Thomas said which I picked interesting, and that's the trend of some governments making cryptocurrency even legal tenders within their countries. And recently that happened in El Salvador, which as part of their digital agenda vision for I think a period of 10 years, they have decided to adopt Bitcoin as a legal tender. Now, do you quite think that this, because I've seen some skepticism expressed over such move with regards to things like scalability, with regards to the legality and some other technical issues that may evolve or may emerge from there. So, Thomas, do you quite think like the example from El Salvador of the digital agenda of adopting Bitcoin, do you see it as a pragmatic move? Do you see it as a profitable move? And do you recommend it to African countries to adopt?
I wish that I was an economist.
Yeah, I think that.
Richard, let Thomas take that, then I'll come to you too.
Okay.
I wish I was an economist, because then I could give you a very big, fat, full essay, you know, from an economics perspective. But simply understanding cryptocurrency and simply understanding what it entails and how revenue from a government at a government level is used and how it's collected. Adopting a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, I wouldn't endorse. It's still highly volatile. It's incredibly volatile. It's subject to, as Richard said at the beginning of this discussion, it's difficult to track, and it's therefore difficult to audit. One of the key reasons why legal tender in its fiat form through banks and legal tender being issued by a central authority is still the accepted model is because of how it is controlled and how the relationship between a taxpayer or a person in a country and a government operates. You introduce something like cryptocurrency into it, it's compromisable, or at least more compromisable than current models, which is why you would need to see something either different in design at the blockchain level to Bitcoin, or I know that many will vilify me for saying this, but you need something that the government can endorse, that to a certain degree it does control. Something that has a value that is stable, not because it's called a stable coin, but because it actually has intrinsic value to it. These are features of legal tender, and these are features of a currency that you would need to see. Something that cannot just fly from outside of the borders of a country. You don't want something that can lose its value overnight and leave many of your people destitute. You would want some form of stability in its infrastructure and in its value proposition as an asset, which cryptocurrency at its very core still is. So no, Bitcoin as a legal tender is probably not the best idea in the long run.
Okay, Richard, you want to respond to that before we get back to your questions?
I want to add to that. I want to add to that issue topic. Okay, for me, I think that you can't fight technology. Okay, so cryptocurrency, blockchain, Bitcoin, they are just technology. Okay, and when technology comes, it has come to stay. So I think what the governments can actually do is to, find a way to better the system. Instead of pushing it out, entirely. Just as Thomas said, creating a digital currency that can actually serve as a legal
tender.
Yeah, so the idea of governments coming to back down on Bitcoin and all that is actually a bad move for me, because I'm personally certain that you can't fight technology. Okay, going by the history of technology, it has all been improving.
But then how about the idea of governments making it a legal tender? Do you think that's a pragmatic move? And do you recommend it for African governments?
Just as he quite said, Bitcoin in itself is highly volatile. Okay, I think if any government needs a cryptocurrency as a legal tender, she can actually create her own. Okay, she can actually create her own. It must not be Bitcoin. Okay, so a government can look into the country, look into the people, and see what they need, what they lack, what they need to add to their system, and with that be able to come up with their own digital or cryptocurrency.
Okay, good. So now let's go back to a question I asked both of you, which Thomas has responded to, but which you haven't, and which is, do you see cryptocurrency as the currency for the future Africa? That's for you, Richard.
Yeah. Okay, yes, like I said, you can't fight technology. Okay, just as El Salvador has taken the move to legalize Bitcoin and make it a legal tender in their country. Okay, and we have also seen other African countries developing their own digital currency. Particularly here in Nigeria, the CBN has already announced their intention to create their own digital currency. So it must not be Bitcoin, but I see cryptocurrency as the future of currency in Africa, if not in most parts of the world.
All right, I'll ask you two more questions, then we'll get to Cryptopia full square. First, do you also think that Africa can become a market leader in this emerging sector of cryptocurrency, going by the trends that we've been discussing all along?
Yeah, I have seen most articles where Africans are being, praised for their for their full and active participation in the crypto space. Okay, but I think before Africa will be, take the full lead, the government needs to actually step in. Okay, because anything that is happening in Africa now with regards to digital currency and the blockchain technology is almost 80% of the people. Okay, so the governments actually don't have a good impact with regards to this. So if the people can actually come together to create this kind of wave that gets the world to talk, okay? So if governments now step in, that will be a game change altogether.
All right. Now we are TAFFD. Just one more question before we talk to Cryptopia. We are TAFFD, which is the organization bringing this show. We are concerned. We are particularly concerned about making the vision for the fourth industrial revolution an actuality in Africa. So we try to build much of our discussions into that vision. We're trying to see how many emerging technologies in Africa can be deployed, mobilized into actualizing the fourth industrial revolution in Africa. That's 4IR. So let me ask you, Richard, and then Thomas, if you want to chime in. Are there areas where you see this trend of cryptocurrency also playing a part towards the fourth industrial revolution in Africa? Do you see cryptocurrencies contributing to the realization of the fourth industrial revolution in Africa? Let me put the question that way.
Yeah, of course. I see crypto playing a part, not just a part, but a major part. Okay, because when you talk about the industrial revolution, it cannot go without finance. Okay, and cryptocurrency coming into play, we give Africa that opportunity to be boundless. Okay, they can be able to relate and interact with other counterparts outside of their continent. Okay, so I really think that cryptocurrency has a very big role to play.
All right, Thomas, how may cryptocurrencies contribute to the fourth industrial revolution in Africa? Any views?
Absolutely. And I mean, firstly, fully agreed with Richard. Unquestionably, cryptocurrency is going to be a huge part of the fourth industrial revolution in Africa. Simply, and I'll just recall a few points from earlier in the discussion. With cryptocurrency, because transactions are validated by multiple uninterested parties, trust is not necessarily required. Because transaction fees are so paper thin, you don't have those inhibitions to cross-border transactions anymore. I mean, going further than that, the applications of blockchain are absolutely boundless. Simply logistics management and transfer of value in a logistics chain is my favorite example, and it's one that I used for my thesis. It's you have a smart contract. Funds are tokenized and funds are reserved in escrow, so to speak, and those funds are only released to the other party when the person receiving goods scans all of the items they're supposed to receive. As Richard had mentioned, blockchain can, and it absolutely can be used to add legitimacy to election processes. As governments, as authorities, as Africans, and as the world at large wake up to these potentials from cryptocurrency and its underlying technology, distributed ledgers, blockchains, we'll see possibly even in many areas, Africa taking the lead from a crypto perspective as part of the fourth industrial revolution. I think that it's almost attached to Africa's experience of the fourth industrial revolution and its importance as an innovation and its potential for further innovation really, really cannot be understated.
Oh, great. All right. So now let's come to the big question, even as we bring our discussion to a close, and that is talking Cryptopia. When I first came across this concept of Cryptopia, it was a documentary recently aired on Al Jazeera, and there the documentary went into a division of some of the earliest developers of this technology, and there are so many big statements made there. And Cryptopia, by the way, means crypto utopia, and some of the big statements made there was that through cryptocurrency and blockchain, the developers are building something that will be one of the biggest moments in human history, bigger than the mastery of fire, bigger than the invention of electricity, bigger than the Renaissance, bigger than the Enlightenment, bigger than every industrial revolution that has gone before. So we get the sense that cryptocurrency is going to usher humanity into a new era of great prosperity, but also significant transformations. And we're trying to relate that to Africa, this same vision of Cryptopia in Africa. And I'm going to be asking both of you, do you really think that cryptocurrencies will indeed present that gateway, which we're talking about here, to a prosperous, sustainable, and more functional African society now or sometime in the future? You think Cryptopia can actually happen in Africa? Thomas and then Richard.
Well, yes, we all know that Africa has its own fair share of problems, but at the same time, a lot of those problems become obviated when you think about what cryptocurrency can and where it may be going, or what it can do and where it may be going. From all aspects of society, you have commerce, transactions between individuals happening real time across borders with no difference in the cost. You have logistics chains, the example that I used. You have transactions that are enabled among untrusted, unknown parties, unknown to each other. They don't know each other, therefore they don't trust each other. As part of that lack of necessity for trust, when you talk about blockchain, as Richard very rightly said, you've got elections that can have so much more legitimacy added to them because of the transparency involved. Government spending is directly accountable to the people. These are features of what you would think of as a cryptopia, a crypto utopia. The more it's implemented, and I caveat that to say in a responsible manner, the more you see these problems becoming non-issues as you move along. It really, all that you need to see that happen from my perspective and in my experience is proper understanding at large, not just with a unique pocket of people who've taken the time or who have been involved in cryptocurrency in the past, but the same level of understanding as people, at least as people have about money itself nowadays. Once cryptocurrency goes beyond that, oh, it's a money replacement, and look at its use case into money, yes, but also into facilitating running a government and running a company itself, the more, and doing it again in a responsible manner, the more you see these processes being tightened up, more efficient, value transfer seconds away, costs of doing business almost nullified, lack of transparency by government or to government done away with. These are features of a cryptopia. This is what some governments have seen the bigger picture for. Your El Salvador, while their decision to use Bitcoin might be a bit misguided. It might be, but certainly the vision is there. When you see that happening in Africa, and you see African leaders asking the question, how do we use this to our advantage and grow our countries economically, and use this to take the lead, which it's there for the taking. The sooner you'll be able to see quite possibly a cryptopia where it's all good and very little bad, again, as long as it's done responsibly, and you move away from the more vanilla, yes, cryptocurrency is for trading on exchanges, that's all it's good for. The sooner you see that as crypto simply being in its infancy, and there's more potential to it, the more you understand how it absolutely can lead to a wonderful society, just from that perspective alone.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the optimism in your perspective, as well as your good grasp of the bigger picture, which we very much need to build a positive narrative for Africa. Richard, I'm going to ask you the same question, your honest thoughts on this. Do you think cryptocurrencies can actually lead to the building of a prosperous and functional African society? Sorry, your mic, it's like your mic is muted.
All right, I said absolutely yes. Okay, because when Bitcoin started first, I think in 2009, when cryptocurrency started in 2009, I think it started with Bitcoin. Okay, and when you read the white paper of Bitcoin, you discover that it was created to be a peer-to-peer means of transaction. Right. Okay, but people like Vitalik, okay, the founder of Ethereum, okay, looked into the blockchain technology and discovered that there are more that can be done with crypto other than just peer-to-peer transaction and means of transaction. Okay, so we are yet to see the full potentials of crypto. Okay, many people have built a lot of value out of the technology. Okay, so it started first with Vitalik, who built the Ethereum network, in which other people have used to create and build their build their own tokens and the crypto network. Okay, so every day new developers are seeing new possibilities, new potentials in crypto, and they are trying hard to utilize it. Okay, so not all the crypto currencies out there are meant for transactions. Okay, just as Thomas said, it goes beyond buying and sell to make profit. Okay, there are coins and cryptocurrencies that are built to solve actual life problems. Okay, so going by that, okay, we can see that since this technology is just new, and like I said earlier, you can't fight technology. We can only improve on the existing technology. And since cryptocurrency and blockchain technology is still new, people are still going to create more value out of it. Okay, and just like your question said, I think the perfect answer to it is yes, because we are yet to to see the wonders and the big potentials of this technology.
Oh, fascinating. Thanks for that insight. And I also appreciate your positive response, the resounding yes that you gave us with regards to that question. Once again, these are attitudes that we need in Africa to build that upbeat and positive outlook and narrative in cashing in on the opportunities offered by new technologies as we keep up with the work of trying to build a bigger and better Africa. But then there's something you keep repeating, Richard. This may be a discussion for another day, where you keep saying you can't fight technology. That sounds sort of like technological inevitabilism, or should I say technological determinism, all right? You make it sound like technology is so inevitable and it's that deterministic force that we all just have to surrender to. Not everybody will agree with that, but perhaps we will save that for another talk. I thank both of you, and by discussing Cryptopia, I would say we've brought our conversation full circle, and we've touched everything that needs to be looked at, needs to be touched. So I'm going to give just 1 minute each to the both of you to give us your closing comments, because our time is fast spent and we need to bring this show to a close. So starting with you, Thomas, just your closing comments and what you want to leave us with.
Absolutely. You know, in short, cryptocurrency very much is still in its early stages, and where it's going is going to surprise everyone, I'm pretty sure. Its use cases are very, very diverse, and it simply just needs interest, willingness, and skill to really take forward in those new innovative ways that we need to see it blossom and to allow it to bring true value to Africa. As long as governments don't see cryptocurrency as a threat and more see it as an opportunity, we have very, very exciting things to look out for in store.
Right, great. And then Richard, your closing comments.
Yeah, for me, you know, cryptocurrency adoption first has to do with understanding the concept around it. Okay, so people don't get to see it as a means of scam. You know, till now, I know some people, when you talk about crypto, they recount their MMM experience. Okay, so I think being able to, you know, educate youths more, not just youth, but the entire populace about crypto, you know, is a big step to actualizing what we really want to actualize with cryptocurrency and the blockchain technology in general.
All right, thank you. And then lest I forget, we at TAFFD Africa, we have a book project ongoing titled Africa and the Fourth Industrial Revolution, a multifaceted approach. And for both of you, the speakers and those listening to us out there, if there's any chapter you want to contribute to the project of the Fourth Industrial Revolution in Africa, it's coming from like this discussion we've had, blockchain, crypto, Bitcoin, or even tax, like our man Thomas specializes in. Yeah, we have that book project going on. We're looking at all the different approaches by which we can make the Fourth Industrial Revolution happen. So we are accepting chapters. And if you want to write for us, we'll be so glad to get your entry. We can continue that through email correspondences. We'll put you through how to contribute a chapter to our book. It's a project that we would love to have as many hands on board as possible. But then thank you both for the wonderful insights you've shared on this show. We're so grateful for how you've opened our minds and broadened our perspectives. And I wish both of you good luck in your various projects, in your respective projects. And yeah, hope to see you again on the show. Right, so thanks for honoring our invitation, and I wish you a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Ojuchogwo. You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas.
Yeah.
Thanks, Richard.